An excellent report came out in the Financial Times this week, because in that they did some deep dive reporting around what Trump and the Trump family, as well as the Witkoff family, have been doing with the Russians, and the way in which this has been about effectively trying to sell Ukraine out in order for them personally to enrich themselves in response to that. This is something the Russians had planned as soon as Trump won the election. What we understand is that prior to Trump's inauguration, the Russians had basically been trying to concoct a plan that involved essentially finding ways to bribe and enrich Trump and his family and the people around him in exchange for them basically giving Ukraine away. And they have been working on this for some time, and now the specifics of that are finally coming to fruition in this dialogue going on between Putin's own representative and Steve Witkoff. Together, they're working out a plan, not just how to essentially betray Ukraine, but how to make money out of the process too. As we know, Steve Witkoff is a very rich man. He's a billionaire property developer. And sitting by the side of his pool, together with a man called Kirill Dmitriev, a representative of Putin's government, another right-hand person of Vladimir Putin, just like Witkoff is a right-hand person of Donald Trump. They sat together in Steve Witkoff's mansion by the pool on a computer, together with Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, planning the future of Ukraine and how they can maximize their own profits from this process. As I say, this is something that the Russian side had been planning and gaming out for many months now, from before Trump's inauguration. And this is what was on the computer screen. This is what they'd been hatching together. It was leaked, which is why we know. You see, $300 billion of Russian assets have been frozen by the West, by Europe and America. Those assets are part of the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund, part of their reserves, and because you can't trust their own banks, they had held them in sort of Western banks around the world. As soon as they invaded Ukraine, that money was then frozen by the West, rightly so. And they were told that they can't spend that money, they're not going to get it back until they leave Ukraine. And at that point, they could have it back. Now, what the Russians have been proposing to Trump and his family, and Steve Witkoff and his family, is that, you know what, if you help us release that money, then together we can join in with some American companies in the Trump family and the Witkoff family, and we can engage in some things like Arctic mining together. So the Russians will give them some access, and together they'll engage in some Arctic mining and try to extract some rare earth minerals from there that will enrich both countries as well as both families. So they're sort of secretly plotting away how they can try and make money through that route. There's also space exploration. They're also suggesting that if sanctions are removed from Russia, if Russia is allowed to sort of basically have carte blanche in Ukraine and stop being treated like a pariah, then and given whatever it wants in Ukraine, then Russia could then join with America. They combine their forces for space exploration, and that itself can also lead from very significant profit making in the industries that they can create and run together. So it's a process by which they can earn significant money by combining their forces in terms of space exploration that the Trump and Witkoff family can have shares in and be major stakeholders and ultimately profit from. These are the kind of things that were on that computer screen that they were going through, not just the terms of essentially Ukraine's surrender to Russia, which we have heard and I've talked about in the previous video. The elements that this agreement, so-called agreement between Russia and America, not with Ukraine as part of that, but the elements that this agreement contain are about Ukraine ceding more territory to Russia. Usually it's the invader who has to cede territory and step out, but they're saying Ukraine should cede more territory to Russia. They're also saying that Ukraine should de-arm. They're also saying that there should be no other foreign soldiers on Ukrainian soil. In other words, completely lay Ukraine bare open to be finally taken over, invaded, and completely annexed by Russia. That is the plan, of course, but the Russians are saying, in exchange for giving us this, we're going to give you all this money. With this space exploration, with this Arctic exploration, we can combine our forces and you guys can make money out of this too. That's basically the massive carrot they're holding before Trump, which is why Trump is doing all this, which is why Trump is basically, attempting to give Putin what he wants right now. So we have always known that this is fundamentally about money. We've always known that the Russians have had something over Trump, and there may be other things too. But one thing is for sure, what they're saying to them is that, hey, dude, we can make a lot of money together. Let's do that. Forget about the Ukrainians and what happens there. That's clearly the strategy here, and it's been revealed. Now, the interesting and somewhat reassuring turn of events that we've learnt about just recently is that the Europeans are rightly furious about this. Of course, European governments know that if Ukraine falls, then the rest will follow. And Russia and Putin are right now making threats against the rest of Europe. Okay, so other countries may well fall, which is why Europe is furious about this. So what Europe has actually said, and I'm amazed that this has been mooted, and I'm really not sure as which level of European leadership this has come from. Isn't the kind of thing that European leaders tend to do or say, because it's so sort of assertive and aggressive. But what they have said is that they might consider, in response, selling off US Treasury bonds. You see, the EU is the biggest holder of US Treasury bonds. The UK has over $700 billion worth of US Treasury bonds, and the EU has over $1.2 trillion worth of US Treasury bonds. So between them, they have over $2 trillion of US Treasury bonds that they hold. So the US economy, their currency levels is very dependent on the EU and the UK. And very interestingly, what they've threatened is that if Trump goes ahead with this plan without them, without involving Ukraine, without involving Europe, then they could dump all of that US Treasury bonds, which would send the US economy into a complete tailspin overnight. Now, this is a little bit of, mutually assured destruction, because it will obviously affect the European economies too if that happens. But that has apparently been mooted by people from European leadership, that we would be prepared to do this if you basically try and sell out Ukraine in that way. I'm very impressed that European leadership have gone to that level to threaten the states in that way. I hope that is true. As I say, it's come out in reports recently, and I hope that is signed off by European leaders. There needs to be carrot, there needs to be stick as well as a carrot. I mean, we've seen how Keir Starmer and others sort of charm and schmooze and try to sort of mould Donald Trump to bring him on side, but there also needs to be some stick, that if you don't do this, then you could be in some serious trouble. Your economy could go down the toilet, and we could make that happen if we pull the plug tomorrow. Altogether, it's a hugely precarious situation. But there's only one reason why we are in this hugely precarious situation, because before Donald Trump came into office, there was no question of a united front. Everybody wanted the same thing, which is Russia out. Russia get out of Ukraine, and we will eventually defeat them and remove them. Now, that is no longer certain. Why? Because two families, the Trump family and the Witkoff family, want to make money, and they put their own money making ahead of any other territorial integrity, any other international law, any other issue of sovereignty, any other issue of natural justice. What comes first is their money and their profit. I hope you like my video. As a psychiatrist who loves politics and economics and philosophy, I love to make videos like this, and you can really help promote this video to other people and get it on your feed more by liking and commenting and subscribing to the video as well. We have a wonderful community of people here who comment and support each other through this very traumatic period of world history that we're going through right now. I also hope you consider becoming a subscriber to the channel, and also subscribing to my e-newsletter. There's a link in the description, and that way we can stay in touch outside the channel, so you can keep abreast of all of the content that I'm making on an ongoing basis. The latest of which actually is my latest book called We the People. Very, very proud of this book. It's actually a novel, a fiction book written by myself and the famous award-winning author T.J. McGregor. Together we wrote a book about what the future might look like. Bit of a dystopian novel, but what might happen if autocracy goes to its next stage, AI predicting the potential end of humanity. I actually made a video about that, it really happened. And how things might pan out in this dystopian world, and actually how a band of committed, passionate, progressive people manage to change the trajectory, and not in the way that you think. It's not just by running a candidate and opposing the autocrat, but actually by deepening the democracy that we have and engaging in a real participatory form of democracy that sort of shifts the needle and gets us back to basics and helps us sort of rebuild our democracy. And that's within the context of a really compelling, gripping story, a bunch of fascinating characters, and I assure you, you will not be able to sort of stop turning the page until you get to the end of the book. That's what all the reviewers have said so far. Lots of people love it, and I hope you can get it. You can get it on Amazon, any of the global Amazon bookstores out there. Please do order your copy of We the People. Just put We the People Russell Razak and you'll be able to find it inside Amazon as well. Also, I hope you consider becoming a member of the channel. You can subscribe to a couple of different membership levels. All members of the channel also get some free ebooks that I produce once a month. You can buy those ebooks too from russellsbooks.com. That's russellsbooks.com, and every month I produce a new ebook on that channel, which is really about, these are the non-fiction books I produce with my team, which is really about how to learn about the world around us and the psychologies of the people who govern us, but also how to learn about ourselves, deepen our own self-awareness in a way that helps us navigate this difficult world we're in right now. So those are sort of self-help books that are produced every month, and if you're a member of the channel, you get a sort of 100% discount on those books every month. Otherwise, you can go to russellsbooks.com, as I say, and buy them anytime you like. I really hope you can become a part of this community, as I say. So this sort of supportive community, validating and helping each other, is really worth being a part of, and I hope you can join us as we all join forces to create a better tomorrow together. Thank you.